another plane crash. So I didn't know how to go live to where I can like share what I was watching. So I'm just gonna play it from my laptop, and you'll see that this is coming from Frog News. So you can actually go watch this yourself if it looks stupid from how I'm doing it. But
welcome back here, Sue, live now from Fox.
bear with me, y'all.
Live picture there in Philadelphia. We do have some breaking news there in the city of brotherly love. I want to put this tweet up from our colleague there at Fox 29. Reporter Chris O'Connell, he says there have been several reports of a plane crash into a building in northeast Philadelphia. Fox 29 Philadelphia have been covering this story within the last few minutes. They are sending reporters to the scene. I believe some of those reporters are on the scene as well here. You can see Steve Keeley shooting this video from his cell phone. He says bulletin airplane crash there on Roosevelt Boulevard. He says fires burning in multiple spots on Cotman Avenue. He says pieces of airplane scattered there on the ground. Jason Martinez with this video saying this is being described as a plane crash in the area of Bustleton and Cotman Avenues in northeast Philly. That's a doorbell camera provided by a viewer there to Fox 29. Let's take it full here. Look at that. And you see the nighttime sky light up in orange. Wow. In the meantime here, Fox 29 in Philadelphia is in breaking news coverage of this. Let's listen.
This is Jason Martinez here in the Fox 29 newsroom. You were looking at what's being described as a plane crash in northeast Philadelphia. This is doorbell camera provided by a viewer. Left of your screen, you saw the fireball come out of the sky. Again, this is being described to us as a plane crash northeast Philadelphia in the area of Bustleton and Cotman Avenues. You saw the left of your screen, the fireball come right out. Take another closer look. There. And so this just happening here in the last 20 minutes or so. Again, northeast Philadelphia. I believe we have Steve Keeley in the area on the phone. Steve, what can you tell us? Do we have Steve? But again, viewer provided video from a doorbell camera in northeast Philadelphia showing a fireball fall out of the sky. Of course, the northeast Philly airport just less than a mile away from this location. And so a lot of viewers have been calling our newsroom and telling us that they believe this was a plane crash in this area of Bustleton and Cotman. But this doorbell camera video makes you question exactly what we're seeing. Here's a closer look. And really, I can only describe that as a fireball falls out of the sky. And again, this is Roosevelt Mall, I believe, the parking lot in northeast Philly. And this is ground video that we're just getting in. You're seeing it as I'm seeing it. Police taping the area off, smoke and debris in this area. And this is, of course, all happening as we are still sorting through a plane crash that happened in D.C. No word on the size of the plane that crashed, what caused it. We are just learning this.
There's some back here.
Okay, now we have
crash,
Steve.
y'all.
Steve, if you can hear me, what can you tell us?
Jason, I was just warned. I'm pretty close. I was nearby. This happened at 6 o'clock. I got it confirmed by 6:13 and 6:14. And then a top commander in the department told me his house shook. He called the bomb squad, and they told him a plane had crashed. Then lots of calls came in. I was nearby. I saw everybody racing over here. I raced with them. I'm looking at two fires going right now on Cotman Avenue. I'm standing in one of the driveways to the Roosevelt Mall. As I ran over here, I parked in the McDonald's at Cotman and the Boulevard. I wondered what I was tripping over, and it was pieces of an airplane. Began roping that off, and the heavy smell of jet fuel is in the air and has been in the air. There is still black smoke. The fires are not under control, and then an officer just told me to take cover behind the police and fire vehicle up there because there's a gas line nearby. Another commander told me cars were on fire. This was in rush hour. I know it because I was just on Cotman Avenue seconds before this, approaching the boulevard, and when this plane crashed. So it was wall-to-wall cars approaching Cotman and the boulevard, so people were stopped in traffic. I don't know if cars are on fire in front of me or parts of the plane, but it looks like multiple fires, and the fires are not right next to each other. They're a good 100 yards from each other. So there is a string of damage and a string of fires. This mall is under some kind of construction, so they have a tarp around about a 6-foot-tall tent. Every police officer, every fire department member in the city must be up here right now, and there's still more coming on the way. There is so much smoke in the air going right over the mall. right
I'm
here.
recording
And
my
this mall
TV,
was
but if
packed
you guys
too.
want
They
to
had to
go to
move all the
YouTube,
people back
Fox
for their own
News,
good. And the
they
air
have this
quality is
video
not good for
there.
them, but everybody was out here. Now I can see one car on, I'm looking through the fence, Jason. I'm looking down in front of the Dunkin' Donuts on Cotman. And again, this is right before the boulevard. Right in front of the Dunkin' Donuts, it looks like an SUV is on fire, and the flames are all through the street. And there's so many fires here, and the fire department's also trying to worry about that gas line that's in danger. Now I'm counting the fires, Jason. 1, 2, 3, 4 fires I can see right here, all spread out along Cotman Avenue right now.
Steve,
I can't see what's burning.
Steve, we are looking at viewer doorbell camera of what looks like just a fireball falling out of the sky, and as this plane hits the ground, just flames
Nobody
just
would have ever
immense. And
expected
we see a
another
shot
plane
now on the
crash
ground.
this soon
We
after the
see
last one.
looks like some cars are on fire here. You say you smell jet fuel?
Yeah, I can still smell it. There's a smell of fuel in the air, a heavy smell. And if they're reporting a fireball falling out of the sky, the parts of the airplane I saw were not burned. And again, we're near Northeast Philly Airport. It would be an unreal coincidence if there was another midair collision here. I don't know, but and I didn't see any fireball in the sky because I haven't seen that video yet. I'm only on the phone here with you. But the parts of the airplane I saw did not have any burn marks on them. And again, I'm just trampling over them. And the first video I sent in and put on, I'm tripping over the airplane parts before I realize what I'm tripping on. And then an officer says, hey, this is a debris field here from the airplane. And that's it. So we don't know what happened. We just know that an airplane crashed here somehow. And there's parts of the airplane long before where the fires are burning. They're in the Roosevelt Mall parking lot in front of the T-Mobile store. And that is
This
a good
is like a
200, 300,
residential
400
neighborhood
yards
this crash
from where I'm
happened
looking
at.
at a fire burn right now outside the driveway of the Roosevelt Mall. So who knows what happened? I'm sure police don't know what happened. They're just trying to rescue people, and we don't know how many people were in cars here, and their lives were in danger as well. So this is ongoing, and now the smoke, I'm trying to get out of the smoke has adjusted. I'm trying to move so I can breathe and see here, Jason. But the smoke is now shifting all different ways. Wow.
It sounds like the debris field is at least a couple of blocks wide, and as you said, it would be, you've got the Northeast Philly Airport not too far away. How far is the Northeast Philly Airport from you?
This happened about
from where you're
6,
standing?
7 hours ago. I'm
One other
just
thing,
realizing
I'm
there
hearing
was a
minor
second crash
explosions out. When I
today.
got here, I was hearing explosions. I don't know if they were gas tanks or car tires that blow up when they're burning on fire as well. The Northeast Philly Airport is very close to here. In fact, when you're up here at Cotman and the Boulevard, you'll see the planes coming and going, and that is a very busy airport. Smaller jets, but
That was it.
Helicopters and everything.
I'm actually going to go to this one, guys, because I have
I do want to get to the
see
latest here on that
a update on the last plane crash that they had.
mid-air collision between an Army helicopter and an American Airlines flight from Kansas just across the river from Washington, D.C.
But this was not
The
too long
Associated
ago.
Press now saying, sadly, that more than 40 bodies have been pulled from the Potomac River. We know that on board the plane were 60 passengers and 4 crew members, and there were 3 soldiers on the Black Hawk helicopter. President Donald Trump and the D.C. fire chief among those who have said that all 67 people aboard both aircraft are presumed dead as recovery efforts do continue there in the Potomac. Again, a lot of information is coming in on this, but still so much left to figure out. I do want to discuss all of this just a little further, so let's bring in Dr. Philip Mann, an assistant professor of organization and management at Harrisburg University. He spent nearly 2 decades in various roles with the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, and also served in the Department of Defense, the U.S. Army, and the National Guard's Aviation Regiment. You have done it all, of course. We do appreciate you being here to provide some insight on all of this.
Glad to be.
All right, guys, so remember, he's going to give an update on the crash from, I think it was like 2 days ago. The video that I just shared was a crash that happened today. So the one I just shared literally just happened hours ago. So we've had 2 major plane crashes back to back in 1 week.
Here.
All right, so first off, I do want to ask kind of your take here. As you heard all of this start to unfold, the information started to come in that this was a mid-air collision between a passenger jet and an Army Black Hawk helicopter. What are you thinking at this point as you in your head have all of this experience? You have everything that you've kind of seen over the past decades.
Yeah. Anytime I hear of a crash and this any kind of an accident, my first thought, especially in the commercial space and the military space, is these are amazingly qualified pilots, amazingly qualified air crews, and at an airport like Reagan, it's it's a super busy and super well qualified air traffic controllers. So my first thought is, where did the mistake happen? Where did we lose attention? Where did a procedure break down or something? And that's, I mean, I certainly feel for all the people that are involved or affected by it. But my first thing is kind of jumping ahead to what can we find out and how can we prevent this from ever happening again?
Can you tell me a little bit about the airspace, really just over Reagan National Airport? Because I have to imagine that it is heavily traveled, heavily guarded and watched, because we're talking about just a short distance away from places like the White House, the Capitol, all of those locations.
Right. Yeah. The airspace around Reagan National is kind of unique because it has that all the security limitations and all the flight restrictions over the Capitol, over the critical areas of the White House, and that. And what that does is that creates a situation where an already busy airport forces people to fly in much more restricted and condensed corridors, and then add to that just the density of military operations in the area, both in support of that security, but also just because there are bases and operations going on, within a couple hundred miles of there, lots and lots of them. It creates a situation where the attention people have to have, the detail they have to have, and the precision they have to have flying is much more enhanced than it might be in other similar sorts of airspaces without those additional restrictions.
We know that the NTSB is working this investigation here. So I have to ask, based on your experience, what really is the FAA's role as all of this is looked at so closely?
Well, the FAA's role, and the FAA is going to support the NTSB. The FAA is going to provide a lot of data. They're going to provide whatever they need to evaluate, because the NTSB is going in with the perspective of not trying to find and point fingers at people. They're trying to find out, why did this happen and how can we prevent it from happening again. And this one has a little bit of an additional complication because the Army also has a role. The Army kind of manages its own aviation. So you've got the Army on one hand and the FAA on the other hand. They're both going to be providing data to the NTSB to support the investigation, and then to try to get and learn what they can to make interim changes or earlier changes before the final report comes out.
What question or questions do you have that you hope maybe will be answered in the coming days, months, and possibly years?
One of the kind of outstanding questions I have is are they going to be able to find a place where some of the new and emerging technologies comes in that'll help us resolve some of these issues? This is one of those situations that appears to be, and this is my speculation, it appears to be that there was a miscommunication or a misidentification of an aircraft by the pilot of the Black Hawk possibly, and that itself is something that might be enhanced by technologies like augmented reality, mixed reality, that maybe could have drawn a circle around the place they were supposed to be looking instead of letting them try to identify it themselves.
Wow,
and I'm also
that
looking to see where does this affect how we do hiring and training for air traffic controllers, because this is a lot of talk about this being a short staff facility, but the idea of air traffic not being staffed fully is a decades long problem that in the case here is actually exacerbated by some of the COVID stuff, because the pipeline is many years long. So when they had to stop hiring or slow down hiring during COVID, well, that slows down and causes us to have less proficient people. And at the other side of that, we have mandatory retirements because of age, and all that kind of thing. And it's a many decades long thing. And regardless of how people get into the system to be hired, they still don't get a position as an air traffic controller unless they're qualified and competent.
Right.
And it's just a high attrition, high tax, or high turnover sort of thing, because aviation is very unforgiving. This might have been what in a different context would have been a very simple, very easy to get over a fender bender or something like that. But you don't have fender benders in airspace. You have what we have here over very, very relatively small errors have very, very, very large consequences.
You talked a little bit about the Army overall. We know this was a Black Hawk helicopter that was involved. I imagine the training for that overall has to be a lot more involved than flying just maybe your average plane. There's probably a lot of training, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of training, and and not to say anything, but commercial pilots are trained at a very, very high level for fixed wing. They're just trained differently. Where commercial aviation, you're generally trained for higher level navigation, you're trained for more procedures kind of things. The unique aerodynamics of a helicopter, any helicopter, and especially a high performance helicopter like a Black Hawk, means that there's a lot more focus on learning how to operate at low levels, learning how to navigate, within a few 100 feet of the ground, learning how to deal with just the fact that you can actually stop in midair, hover, you can't hover, and dealing with that. And there is going one way or the other. If you go from being a helicopter pilot to an airline pilot, there's a transition of training and upgrading. Going from a commercial pilot or a jet pilot to a helicopter pilot, you would have a similar transition going the other way. It's more focusing on the operating environment and, in addition to the complexity, but they're both fairly comparably complex.
You kind of touched on this already, but do you see this leading to any sort of changes of any kind?
I
hope
see
so.
this could possibly, and this is again just going off of what the reporting's been so far with the staffing and stuff like that, and just my awareness that fatigue because of staffing and fatigue because of just the nature of the job is a big thing. I can imagine that this will possibly put more emphasis on a recent Federal Aviation Administration program where they call it the Enhanced Collegiate Training Initiative, the Enhanced CTI, which allows a broader pipeline of trainees where students do a lot of their preliminary training at a university, at an approved program that's been overseen by the FAA. Currently, I believe there's only 3 enhanced CTI schools. There's the Embry-Riddle campus in Daytona, there's a University of Oklahoma, and there's a Tulsa school in Tulsa. And name is eluding me right now, but there's like 3 schools that are approved for it. And students who go through there, they go directly to facility training. They don't have to do the narrow pipeline going through Oklahoma City to get trained by the FAA. And I hope that we realize that the only way to increase the training is to increase the training capacity, and that will get us to having more qualified people, and that will allow us a better lever to be able to mitigate fatigue and mitigate staffing shortages, and hopefully buffer whatever the contributing factors were along those areas to this particular crash.
All right, Dr. Philip Mann, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
No, I think it's important that people remember that it's a very, very important to remember that the fact that this is newsworthy means that our air traffic is safe. Every single crash is going to make the news, but if you drive down the highway and you look at all the cars that are crashed up on the side of the road, none of those are making the news because aviation is just so safe that it is so weird that we have a crash, and people should take that at heart. If people are seeing a crash and they're afraid to fly all of a sudden, they shouldn't be. The fact that this made the news means that it's a very, very rare incident, and they can take that to be a positive indication of the safety, not a negative indication of their willingness to fly.
Yeah, I'm
All
still
right,
scared
Doctor.
to fly. I don't care what nobody say.
Here's what happened last night. I'm able to secure the actual audio from.
All right, guys, I wanted to share this other video. This guy actually plays the box, the audio box from the crash that happened 2 days ago, and he kind of breaks it down, and it was really interesting. Let me see how long it is. I probably should technically make this a separate video, but I'm just gonna go ahead and play, and whoever wants to stick around and see what he has to say, feel free.
The incident over the Potomac last night. Let's listen into.
If you want to look this for yourself, it's called Analyzing the Mid-Air Collision Over the Potomac, a detailed examination of ATC communications.
Together.
Okay, 79 contact so far today. Okay. American 7130 for the final.
You're going to see a back and forth now between Reagan Tower and the various aircraft that they have lined up on approach into the airport. This happened at about 8:46 p.m. Last evening, and you can see there's several airplanes lined up. That's typical coming in about that time of night at Reagan. They're talking to American Airlines 3130, which I think is number 2 for the runway. They're telling them to slow down to their final approach speed because they're separating everybody on the way in. It's going to turn out that American 3130 is a key player in what happens here.
Follow American 3130. Pat 25, traffic just off the Wolf Bridge in CRJ.
Pat 25 is the helicopter that ran into the CRJ 700. It was a PSA flight. The flight number is 5342. It would go under the call sign Blue Streak 5342. You don't ever hear them talking to tower. They've already been cleared to land on runway 33. So they would come in on an approach on runway 1, and then they would kind of circle the land on runway 33. It's a little shorter runway, but they take some of the regional jets and they put them on that runway. Pat 25 is the Black Hawk helicopter that is just south of the Woodrow Bridge, and they've just taken off. They're airborne. The tower is saying to them, there's traffic. It's a CRJ. It's at 1,200 feet, lined up for runway 33. Do you have that traffic? Pat 25 is going to call back and say yes.
It's 1,200 feet, start runway 33.
Pat 25 says, has the traffic in sight, request visual separation. What that means is that they're going to take responsibility for visual separation from that aircraft. What happened? Here's what I think happened. This is not the final word on it, but what I think happened was, it was at night. There's several airplanes lined up. There is that Blue Streak 5342, which is a CRJ that they ran into. Right behind them, just a few miles, is American 3130. Everybody has their lights on as they're coming in. I believe the helicopter looked at the American 3130 and said, I've got the traffic in sight, and they never saw the airplane, the CRJ that was right next to them. That's my conjecture on what happens.
Visual separation. This separation proof. American 1630 tower, runway 1 off wood, traffic direct on runway 33, dispatch 16 off funnel.
So this is typical stuff that's going on in a busy airport. They're lining somebody up to take off. They're saying, pay attention. I'm going to give you an immediate takeoff here. I've got traffic lining up for runway 33. That's the CRJ that got ran into. And he's on a 6-mile final. And it might be somebody even behind him, but they're lining everybody up to take off into land.
Whiskey 5307. Keep rolling down to November, Concourse, today.
You can see at the bottom of your screen there, the CRJ, the Blue Streak 5342. They're beginning to now kind of come out a little bit to line up to runway, to land on runway 33. They're not going to go right straight down the river. They got to come out a little bit wider and come in. But remember, Pat 25, which is up here, the helicopter at the middle of your screen, they've already said, we accept responsibility for visual separation.
American 1631 star 3214 up to 5 7 2 mile update from Bay 33. No delay from Bay 1 for B to
There's
take off.
American to take off.
Clear for takeoff. American 1630.
Here it comes. Now the tower is seeing what's happening, and they're saying, do you have the CRJ in sight? Because you guys are getting kind of close. And the Pat 25, the helicopter, says once again, yeah, and I'm asking for visual separation. Okay, the responsibility's on you then.
Pat 25, pass on this CRJ.
Okay, so Pat 25 says, has the aircraft in sight, request visual separation. I don't think they had these guys in sight. I think they had the airplane behind them. In sight. That's why this is such a tragedy.
American 4782 by Pat. American 472 Oscar 1 star 32017.
So you hear somebody in the tower.
So I don't know if y'all caught that. He's saying that the helicopter people were confirming that they had the plane in sight, but what it was is they had the plane in sight that had already went ahead. So they had the wrong plane in sight, and they end up crashing into the one that was actually ahead of them.
Tower go, oh, and they see what just happened. As you can see in your screen here, the collision took place. The tower has seen it happen in real time. They're human beings. They're reacting just like you and I would. The helicopter ran into the CRJ. The CRJ's airspace was their airspace. In front of them, behind them, on both sides of the...
You heard that. This aviation dude just said the helicopter ran into the airplane. The helicopter was in their airspace. We're not placing blame, but this is the closest to like detailed information and explanation that we've gotten so far.
Them. It was a responsibility of helicopter to maintain visual separation. They even told him a couple times, do you got him in sight? Do you got him in sight? He said, yep, got him in sight. I'm accepting responsibility for the separation. And I think just like when you're driving in a car and you look and you see a car behind the one that almost hit you,
Right.
you see that car and you didn't see the one right here. And when you turn out in front, sometimes there's
Right.
a collision. It's really tragic when this happens in an airplane. Again, it's been decades since there's been a mid-air collision in this country. This is such an unusual circumstance to take place. It's such a tragedy. It's been 12 years since there's been a fatality in a commercial airliner here in the United States. That's unprecedented. And that wasn't a mid-air collision. That was just an accident.
Crash, yeah.
This is a mid-air collision, and this hasn't happened in forever. So now we know what's going on here. Pat 25, the helicopter, accepted responsibility for visual separation. They probably had their eyes on the airplane behind them, and then they tragically ran into these guys.
Did you see that? 172. American 3130, go around turn left and 250, flight maintain 3000.
So now what happens from the tower's perspective is they have to work through denial pretty fast. They just saw this happen in real time in front of them.
Right.
They're human beings like the rest of us. They're kind of in shock. But they've still got airplanes coming in. They've got American Airlines 1630, which just took off. They've got to hand them off to departure. They got American 3130 that's coming in. They got American 472 behind them. They got to do something with these airplanes. Right? The airplane port is going to be shut here in a second. So they're going to start telling all these guys to go around while they're trying to handle the emergency and get the emergency equipment out. And all of that is, everybody's kind of in a little fog for a few seconds here while all of this is taking place. The tragedy of it hits you hard. And they're very professional. Watch how they handle this. But man, they're busy.
Right. Imagine you guiding airplanes. You think you're doing good, everything's okay, and then right in front of you is a crash, and you have like a millisecond to emotionally react because, bam, now you got to get, fire team, rescue, ambulance, all of that on scene, and you don't have time to like be in your feelings. So these people have to act real fast.
Busy.
Okay, let's take 350, 3000, American 3130. Tower, Blue Street, 5347 is on final. Request runway 33, circle to 33. Take a heading for American 3130. American 3130, go around to left and 270, flight maintain 3000. 270 heading, 3000.
See how fast he's talking? He's trying to get all these other airplanes out of here.
Crash. This is alert 3. Crash.
Okay, what's MWAA? It's the Metro Washington Airport Authority. Every airport has some sort of governing authority over it. Many times it's called the Port Authority. Up in Boston, it's Mass Port, right? In New York, it's the Port Authority. Down here in Washington, it's the Metro Washington Airport Authority. They're now announcing officially there's a crash. So they go over the radio and they broadcast to everybody. The tower is the main recipient of this, that there's been a crash. He's going to repeat that. That puts a whole bunch of things into motion all at the same time. The fire crews now are going to jump in their uniforms. They're going to get in their fire trucks. They're going to drive to where the crash is. There's going to be details about this coming. But this whole thing is very frenzied and happens very fast. But these are really highly trained professionals. They do a really terrific job.
Alert 3. Crash. This is alert 3.
And alert 3 is a crash.
Oh, sure. Where's the alert 3? It is on the approach at the runway 33. Approach at the runway 33. Helicopter crashed. Helicopter. Got the answer this morning. Crash. This is alert 3. 2 helicopters.
Okay, so again, fog of war. The first report that they get is that it's 2 helicopters. They're going to clarify this really quickly because the tower is talking back and forth to them. The tower's going to say, nope, it was a CRJ and a helicopter. So they get this, it's cleared up pretty fast.
Helicopter CRJ approaching runway 33.
That's really fast.
Approaching runway 33, a mile long final. Crash. Kilo CRJ approaching 33. Okay. How many totals on board? We don't have any of that information. Tower's reporting a CRJ and a helicopter crash. That's all we remember.
So they're passing the information back and forth to the first responders who need it. Everybody's trying to clarify while they're jumping in their trucks and they're heading out there. Now they know exactly where they're going. It's at the approach end of runway 33. It's somewhere in the Potomac. Now they're going to have to coordinate boats and other things. Eventually they're going to get helicopters involved.
Can we go ahead and hold all operations till we have emergency units respond? We're going to go ahead and show the aerodrome closed.
They want to close the airport so they can go.
Yeah, that's affirmative. All operations aerodrome closed.
Everything's closed.
And everybody just hold your positions, please, on the field right now.
Okay, so this is the ground controller. Now, the ground controller is the one that's going to get all these trucks going where they need to go. But the ground controller needs to stop all the airplanes. So she just makes a blanket broadcast. Everybody stop right where you are. Every once in a while, you kind of half hear that, and then you say, okay, I'm sorry. And there's also people asking to be released from their gate to go. They're not into what's going on yet because they just put their headsets on and they're just getting ready to go. One aircraft's going to ask to do this, and she's just going to say, everybody stop.
That's 438, ready for taxi.
Everyone's going to have to hold for now. I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. Fire command. The accident happened in the river. Both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river. It's east of the approach end of runway 33.
It's amazing to me how much clarity they have about actually what happened and where it happened. Many times in an accident like this, it takes 5 to 10 minutes just to get everything sorted out. They're very good here at getting it all very concise, and so the response time was phenomenal on this.
Is the airfield closed?
Yes, the airfield is closed. The airfield is closed.
Runways as well?
Okay, ARF is the Aircraft Rescue and Firefighters. That's the actual fire chief that's in the fire truck. He's asking, is the airport closed and are all the runways closed as well? That way he can expedite getting out there. He doesn't have to stop and ask, can I cross this runway? Can I go on that taxiway? She's about to tell him, the whole place is shut down. You go. You own the airport now.
All runways are closed. Nobody's landing. No one's moving at all.
And we have clearance across all taxiways, correct?
Yes, you have clearance through the whole field, all taxiways and runways.
So basically she's saying to these guys, go. And at that moment, the fire trucks take off. What we know about the accident at this point is that there were no survivors. It's now a recovery operation. That's the sad part about all of this. And that's the part that really hits us hard right here. But I know you wanted to hear what happened and maybe my response to how they handled this emergency and what led to it. It looks pretty clear at this point that the helicopter had accepted visual separation. That's when they make that call, when they're cleared for that. They said, yep, we've got the airplane in sight. And the airplane they had in sight was the wrong airplane. There was another one in between that and the one that they were looking at. And sadly, they ran into that aircraft. So folks, we're hoping that this never happens again. I know that my annual training, I will certainly get some training on avoiding mid-air collisions I have over my career, but they will refresh this as more details about this situation comes out. And the really wonderful part about that is they share all of the information they get the FAA with every other airline around the planet, so we all can avoid having a tragedy like this happen in the future. We will train to make sure that this never happens again. Well, there you go. Sorry for.
All right, guys. So as you can hear him say, he hopes this never happens again. And as you guys saw at the beginning of my live stream, that there was actually another plane crash. So we'll be staying tuned tomorrow, to figure out what exactly happened with that. If you like the information I shared and the videos that I came across and shared with you guys, just give me a thumbs up, a quick follow, check out my other videos if you can. I really appreciate it. This was very impromptu. I don't really do this, but like I said, I was up doing my YouTube thing, watching TV, and then I saw another video that said another plane crash, and I was like, what? And I saw like only one thing was covering it. So I was like, I wonder, do people even realize that there was another, crash? So that's really the only reason I went live. I'm going to try to find a way, because I'm new at all this, I'm going to try to find a way to go live where if I want to share a video like this live, I'm not recording it from my phone. See, I'm like holding my phone, so I apologize, guys. This is the ghettoest that you'll probably see on YouTube, but I have to figure out how to do this, where I can go live and share videos that I'm watching. But yeah, so let's truly hope that, this is the last of the plane crashes. I mean, we're already getting our year off started to a rocky start as it is. So guys, we just need to stay prayed up, love our country, love each other, and, be nice, treat people how you want to be treated. All right. Like I said, if you like what you saw, like what you heard, please, please, please give me a follow and a thumbs up. Peace.